Now that we're back to having our entire edit concert test passing in green, let's run the entire test suite and see if we missed anything anywhere else. So I'm going to run the whole suite here, and it looks like we do have a handful of other errors still. Let's scroll up and see what the first one is here. Up we go through all the errors, and it looks like it's happening in our add concert test on line 60. And the error is that we're not specifying a ticket quantity when we create the concerts. So let's head over to our add concert test and think about the implications of this. So here in add concert test on line 60, you can see we're testing adding a valid concert. We post through all the details for a concert, including the ticket quantity in this case. But this is failing because what we were doing in our add concert test is creating the tickets and putting them in the database, which is why we're doing this assertion about counting the tickets remaining, rather than storing the ticket quantity in the concerts table. And now the reason for this, of course, is that when we're adding a concert, currently the logic that we have in place and the thing that we're testing is that whenever you add a valid concert, it's published right away, which means that those tickets should be created right away because we're trying to delay the creation of tickets until time of publish. But since we haven't separated publishing out into a separate step yet, verifying that these tickets do in fact get created when we add this concert, I think is still totally fine. So let's figure out a way to work around this and kind of make the change to publish as a separate step sort of incrementally. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to head over to the create concerts table migration, and I'm going to make the ticket quantity nullable so we can get this test back to green and then think about what we need to change. So let's run this whole file. And you can see that by making that column nullable, everything in this test is back to working. Now that doesn't mean the system is working exactly the way that we want it to work yet, but now at least we're in a green state to think about what we want to do next. Now, I think the right next step is to work on setting things up so that when you publish a concert, that's when it creates the tickets. Let's look at some of our implementation right now and think about what's going to need to change. If we head over to the concerts controller and look at the store method, you can see that we're validating the request, we create the concert, we add the tickets to the concert immediately after creating it, and then we go ahead and publish the concert. The change that we want to make is to have the publish method be what's responsible for adding the tickets, instead of adding the tickets directly in the controller. So I think the best way to drive this out is by looking at the unit tests for the concert's publish method. Now, before we do that though, since we're going to be making changes to how publish works, I'll show you a trick that I like to use to keep this concerts controller working the way that it's currently working now, even though we're going to change the implementation of publish. Let's head over to the concert class and find the publish method. And you can see that all it does is update the published at column to the fresh timestamp, right? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this implementation and I'm going to replace the call to concert publish with an inlined version of that implementation. So we'll replace this with concert. And now instead of using the publish method to set the published at timestamp on the concert, we're just going to do it directly. So now this controller action is not relying on the publish method at all, and we're free to change it to match up with our new requirements without breaking this test. Let's go and run the add concert test so we can prove that things are still working before we make any more changes. And you can see that the tests are still in fact passing. So now we're safe to go over to our concert unit test and think about how we want to update our specification for what should happen when you publish a concert. So let's go to our concert test. And it looks like we do have a test for concerts can be published. So right now we create a concert with a null published at date. We assert that it's not published. Then we try to publish that concert and then finally assert that now it is published. So what we want to do here is update this test to prove that the tickets for a concert are created at time of publish. Here's how I think we should do that. Let's update our model factory call here. So we'll create a concert with a null published at date, but we'll also specify a ticket quantity. Maybe we'll create 5 tickets. Now, as part of our pre-assertion step, we want to make sure that those 5 tickets do not yet exist. Just like we're making sure that the concert is not published, we want to make sure that there's currently 0 tickets for the concert that have actually been created. So let's do an assertion here like assert equals 0 concert tickets remaining. and that'll give us the count of all the tickets that are available for the concert that, haven't been sold yet. So now we're going to publish the concert, and then after publishing, we should be able to assert that there are now 5 tickets remaining for the concert because the tickets should now get created. So let's go ahead and run this test, and it should now fail. And it does. It fails asserting that 0 matches expected 5 on line 74. So on 74, we were expecting 5, but there's 0 because the tickets were never created. So we can get this passing by heading over to our concert, and then after updating the publish at timestamp, we can say this, add tickets, this, ticket quantity. And this should create all the tickets that we need based on the ticket quantity that was set in the database. So let's go ahead and run the concert test again and see if we're back to green. And we are. So the concert test is passing. I think the add concert test should still be passing, and it is. So now we're free to refactor the concert's controller to depend on the new publish method instead of the inline implementation that we had before. So let's think about how we could do this. Instead of calling add tickets here and then updating the concert, why don't we just instead do concert publish? But in order for publish to work, we need to make sure that we set the ticket quantity on the concert, right? So instead of adding the tickets here, let's just set the ticket quantity to be an integer version of what comes in through the request. And then instead of adding the tickets here, we can just delete that and rely on what should happen when we call publish. So let's just run this test now and see if we're still green. And we are. So we've successfully replaced that inline implementation with just delegating all that work to the publish method on the concert. So now we can head back to the controller. We can delete this call to update the concert. And now you can see that when we want to separate the step of publishing the concert to something totally separate that we do as a separate step from actually creating the concert, it's going to be a lot easier now because all that logic is sort of encapsulated in this one method. Instead of having some of the work up here like we had before where we were adding tickets and then having to break that stuff up. So we've made this a little bit easier for ourselves now. One last thing that I think we should do is verify that when we add this concert, not only are the 75 tickets created, but the ticket quantity field on the concert is set to 75. So let's add another assertion here that says the concert ticket quantity is 75, because I think eventually we're going to want to remove this assertion because we're not going to be publishing right away, but we do want to know that the column is set to 75. So if we run this test, we'll see that it passes. Head over to the controller and comment out that line. We should see that we now have a test that fails for probably a variety of reasons. Failed asserting that null matches expected 75. So we can uncomment this, get things back to green, and now I think we can also remove the fact that we're making ticket quantity nullable. So now we can make ticket quantity a required column, and then run this test again. See that it's still passing, and just for good measure, let's run the entire test suite and make sure that we're in a good state. And we are. Awesome.